Welcome back to BD Daily Tech News Podcast, where we bring you daily insights on technology and innovation. I'm your host, and this is the Beyond Daily Tech Show edition for 2025, December 9th.
And I'm your guest. Today we've got AI chips sneaking into China legally, the EU yelling at Google again, GPUs getting more expensive, a $75 AI smart ring for your brain, and a big enterprise AI deal. So, just a chill day in tech.
Our goal, as always, is to make sense of the tech moves that actually hit your wallet, your job, and your daily life. No stock tips, no market charts, just the tech and what it means for you.
And a few jokes, because if we're going to talk about export controls and antitrust law, we at least deserve to laugh a little.
Nvidia gets permission to sell powerful H200 AI chips to approved customers in China with a 25% tariff. Then, the EU opens a new antitrust investigation into Google's AI training data. After that, we'll look at why the AI boom could push GPU prices higher, plus a new AI smart ring and an Anthropic Accenture partnership.
So if you're a developer, a gamer, or just someone whose boss keeps saying, we need an AI strategy, this episode is basically your briefing for the week.
Let's start with Nvidia and China. The Trump administration has now approved Nvidia to sell its H200 AI accelerators to approved commercial customers in China, instead of just the heavily cut-down H20 chip that almost nobody wanted.
Right. The H20 was like the decaf version of an AI chip. Technically still a chip, emotionally disappointing. Chinese companies basically said, no thanks, we'll just build around you.
Under the new deal, the U.S. collects a 25% tariff on H200 sales to those vetted customers. The Commerce Department says it's trying to strike a balance. Keep national security by still blocking Nvidia's latest Blackwell B200 and upcoming Rubin chips, but avoid losing the entire China market to local players like Huawei.
So the U.S. is basically saying, you can't have our brand new sports car, but you can buy last year's model with a 25% import tax and only if we approve you.
Performance-wise, the gap is huge. Nvidia has said the B200 Blackwell can be almost 10 times faster than H200 for some workloads, and H200 itself is around 6 times faster than the H20 that was designed to comply with earlier export rules.
And yet some U.S. lawmakers are furious even about H200. You've got Democratic senators calling it a colossal economic and national security failure, and one Republican basically saying China will rip off the tech and try to kill Nvidia as a competitor.
On the other side, Nvidia argues that selling H200 to vetted commercial customers is, quote, great for America because it keeps U.S. companies in the lead and brings in tariff revenue. There's also a practical angle. Reports suggest about $1 billion worth of high-end chips have already reached China through gray and black markets despite restrictions.
Yeah, the black market doesn't wait for Congress. If you block everything, people just start peeling off Nvidia stickers and shipping GPUs under fake labels, which is literally what U.S. prosecutors say has been happening in some smuggling cases.
For developers and companies listening, the key point is this. The U.S. is trying to create a performance ceiling for what AI compute China can buy directly, but not cut it off entirely. That means global AI capacity keeps growing, just with more friction, tariffs, and paperwork in the middle.
And if you're in a multinational, this is your reminder that your AI roadmap now has a geopolitics section. You're not just choosing between H100 and H200. You're choosing between which country is okay with which data center.
Also worth noting, Washington's approval doesn't guarantee China will actually buy these chips. Beijing has been nudging companies away from U.S. tech and backing Huawei, which recently laid out a 3-year plan to catch up with Nvidia and AMD in AI hardware.
So we're watching a weird race in China before Chinese vendors close the performance gap. And can regulators move faster than smuggling networks? So far, my money is not on the regulator's response time.
If you're an individual user, the practical implication is indirect. These export policies shape Nvidia's revenue, which shapes how aggressively they invest in next-gen chips, and frankly, how much leverage they feel they have when they price consumer GPUs.
Nice segue, because speaking of GPU prices, the AI boom is already messing with your shopping cart. Let's talk about why your next graphics card might cost more than your first car.
Engadget has a detailed piece warning that the AI infrastructure boom is starting to push up consumer hardware prices. Memory maker Micron is winding down its crucial consumer brand to focus on high-margin AI components, and we're already seeing the impact.
Yeah, the PC this article was written on literally has a crucial SSD and RAM, and Micron basically said, cool story, we're chasing AI money now. That's like your favorite bakery closing because selling bread to data centers is more profitable.
Concrete numbers. Some DDR5 RAM kits are reportedly 2 to 3 times more expensive than just a few months ago. TrendForce data shows consumer SSD prices jumping 20 to 60% in November alone, as fabs shift capacity towards server-grade storage for AI clusters.
And this is all downstream of companies like OpenAI signing more than $1.4 trillion worth of infrastructure deals. When someone says, we're buying $1 trillion in servers, your little 2 terabyte SSD order does not get VIP treatment.
On top of that, LPDDR5X memory, which is used in smartphones and in Nvidia's Grace Blackwell and Vera Rubin platforms, is expected to get more expensive around 2026. So the same memory tech that powers your phone is also feeding AI superchips.
AI is cutting the line not just for GPUs, but for literally the stuff inside your phone, your laptop, your console. It's like AI walked into Best Buy and said, I'll take everything in bulk, thanks.
The article points out that consumer GPU prices are likely next. There are already reports that AMD is considering raising MSRP on some 8GB GPUs by about $20 and 16GB models by about $40, driven by higher GDDR6 memory costs.
And Nvidia has reportedly told board partners it won't keep supplying VRAM for their cards the way it used to. So if you're a board partner, you're like, cool, so we build GPUs without memory now? Just vibes and heat pipes?
To make things worse for bargain hunters, neither Nvidia nor AMD is expected to release major new GPU generations very soon. Rumors put any super refresh of Nvidia's Blackwell line in mid-2026 at the earliest, and AMD's next big RDNA 5 architecture might not land until around 2027.
So we're in this awkward window. No big new GPUs, but rising memory prices on the ones already out. It's like car dealers saying, no new models for 2 years, but we are raising prices on the old ones.
The Engadget advice is pretty blunt. If you've been thinking about upgrading your GPU and you can afford it, now may be the best window before the end of 2026. They recommend at least 12 gigabytes of VRAM, ideally 16 gigabytes, unless you only play older titles at 1080p.
Yeah, the article basically says stop buying 8 gig cards unless you like suffering. If you're building a rig now, think of VRAM like storage on your phone. You always regret buying the smaller one.
For everyday listeners, even if you're not a gamer, this matters because the same supply constraints can bleed into laptops, consoles, and even phones. The AI boom isn't just invisible in data centers. It can show up as higher prices and fewer deals at retail.
So action steps. If your current PC is fine, you don't have to panic buy. But if your GPU is already struggling and you know you'll upgrade in the next year or two, waiting for a magical price drop might be wishful thinking.
And please, budget for the whole system. If RAM and SSD prices are trending up, don't just price the GPU and forget the rest of the build. This is one of those times where planning 6 to 12 months ahead actually helps.
Okay, from GPUs and tariffs, let's jump to Google getting a fresh love letter from the European Commission. Spoiler, it's not a thank you card.
The European Commission has opened a new antitrust investigation into Google's AI practices. They're focusing on two main questions. First, whether Google is using web publishers' content to power AI overview and AI mode without appropriate compensation or a real option to refuse.
Did Google grab your article to feed its AI? And if you said no, would Google also quietly nuke your search traffic? That's what publishers are afraid of.
The Commission explicitly notes that many publishers depend on Google search for users, so refusing might mean losing visibility. They want to know if there's any realistic way to say, "Don't use my content for AI," without being punished in rankings.
It's like your landlord saying, you can opt out of paying extra, but then you can't use the stairs. Technically a choice, practically not.
The second part of the probe looks at YouTube. The EU is asking whether Google used videos uploaded to YouTube to train its generative AI models, again without proper compensation or an opt-out, while also blocking rival AI developers from using YouTube content at all.
So creators may have signed up thinking, I'll get views and ad revenue, and now they're discovering they also signed up to be unpaid AI training data. Meanwhile, other AI labs can't touch that data, so Google keeps the good buffet to itself.
Teresa Ribera from the Commission put it pretty clearly. AI innovation can't come at the expense of core societal principles. They're worried Google may have imposed unfair terms on publishers and creators while disadvantaging rival AI developers, which would violate EU competition rules.
Google, for its part, says this could stifle innovation in a very competitive AI market, which is what every big tech company says right before the EU hands them a multi-billion euro fine and a PDS of new rules.
For normal users, this matters because it shapes what you see in search. AI overviews summarize content directly on the results page, which can be convenient but may reduce clicks to the original sites that actually created the information.
If publishers can't make money, your favorite niche blogs and YouTube channels don't magically survive on vibes. They either put up paywalls, drown in sponsored junk, or disappear. Then your AI overview is just summarizing a smaller, blander internet.
If you're a creator or a small publisher, this is a good time to audit your dependencies. How much of your traffic and revenue is effectively controlled by one or two platforms? And do you understand how your content might be used for AI training under current terms?
And maybe experiment with backups, email lists, direct RSS, or even old-school forums. Because if regulators force Google to change how AI overviews work, your traffic patterns could swing hard either way.
For developers, the competitive angle is big. If Google is forced to open up or change how it uses exclusive data, that could rebalance the playing field for smaller AI labs that don't own a giant video platform.
In other words, today's boring regulatory PDF is tomorrow's new AI startup opportunity. Not sexy, but very real.
Speaking of startups, let's talk about something much smaller, a $75 AI smart ring from the founder of Pebble called Index 01.
Yeah, this is Eric Majikovsky's new toy. It's not a fitness tracker, not an always listening AI pendant. It's basically a tiny microphone button on your finger that turns your random thoughts into organized notes.
The idea is simple. You press and hold the button on the stainless steel ring, record a quick thought, and the Pebble phone app runs open-source speech-to-text and AI models locally on your smartphone. No cloud processing, no subscription, and your data stays on your device.
So it's like carrying a tiny, privacy-respecting personal stenographer, but only when you're actually pressing the button. So you can't accidentally record your boss. or your date, or your therapy session.
Mike describes it as external memory for his brain. He says he uses it 10 to 20 times per day for 3 to 6 second thoughts, and at that rate, the battery should last around 2 years before you mail it back for recycling.
The spec sheet is kind of wild. It can store about 5 minutes of audio on the ring itself if you're away from your phone, supports over 99 languages, and it's water resistant to 1 meter. So showers, yes. Diving for your dropped phone in a lake, no.
It also integrates with the Pebble mobile app for notes and reminders, can sync into calendars or tools like Notion, and because the software is open source, the button is programmable. Single or double press can trigger things like music controls, camera shutter, or custom voice actions.
So if you're a tinkerer, this is catnip. You can literally hack your ring to send messages, trigger automations, or talk to other AI agents. It's like a tiny open-source remote control for your digital life.
Importantly, this is not trying to be your AI best friend. There's no always-on assistant persona. It's a focused tool. Capture a thought fast, transcribe it accurately, and plug it into the systems you already use.
Which I love because a lot of AI hardware right now is like, hi, I'm your new life companion. And I'm like, no, you're a speaker with delusions of grandeur. This ring just wants to remember where you parked.
For listeners, the question is, does this solve a real problem for you? If you constantly lose ideas between meetings, during commutes, or on walks, a frictionless capture device can be more valuable than yet another app you never open.
And at $75 during pre-orders, it's priced more like a nice accessory than a full gadget ecosystem. If you're going to experiment with AI hardware, something that's private, local, and open source is a pretty healthy place to start.
Let's zoom back up to the enterprise level. Anthropic and Accenture have announced a multi-year strategic partnership and are launching what they call the Accenture Anthropic Business Group.
Which is consultant speak for, we're going to put Claude everywhere in your company and bill you hourly for it.
Accenture is essentially productizing Anthropic's models across its client base and internal workforce. That means everything from AI copilots for employees to automated document workflows to domain-specific assistants tuned for industries like finance, healthcare, and manufacturing.
If you work at a big company and you suddenly get an email about a new AI assistant inside your intranet, there's a decent chance something like this is behind it. It's the franchising of AI. One model, many corporate flavors.
For mid-career professionals, this is where AI will probably hit you first, not as a standalone app you choose, but as a feature quietly embedded into your CRM, your ticketing system, or your office suite, branded with your employer's logo.
And it will start with boring stuff, summarizing long threads, drafting emails, cleaning up PowerPoints. The risk is people treat it like magic and stop checking the output, which is how you end up with a slide deck quoting a hallucinated regulation.
The opportunity, though, is real productivity. If you can offload repetitive writing and data wrangling to an AI system that's been tuned on your company's policies, you can spend more time on judgment calls, client conversations, and strategy.
So if your company rolls out something like this, don't just ignore it or blindly trust it. Treat it like a junior analyst. Great at first drafts, terrible at knowing what can get you fired.
From a career perspective, the smart move is to become the person who actually understands how these tools work in your team. If you can design good prompts, set guardrails, and measure impact, you're not competing with the AI. You're the one steering it.
Exactly. Every big enterprise rollout creates a new informal job, the AI person, for that team. That title tends to come with visibility and, eventually, better compensation if you play it right.
All right, let's land this. Today we covered Nvidia's H200 chips getting a conditional green light into China, the EU taking aim at Google's AI training data, the AI boom squeezing RAM, SSD, and potentially GPU prices, a minimalist AI smart ring, and Anthropic's push into the enterprise through Accenture.
Geopolitics affects your hardware prices. Regulation affects your search results. And your next AI upgrade at work might show up as a boring button in Outlook, not a flashy new app.
Actionable takeaways. If you're planning a PC upgrade, price it sooner rather than later and aim for at least 12 to 16 gigabytes of VRAM. If you're a creator, keep an eye on how your content is used in AI products and diversify how you reach your audience.
And if your company rolls out a new AI assistant, volunteer to pilot it. Be the one who figures out where it helps, where it breaks, and how to keep it from emailing clients in all caps.
You've been listening to the Beyond Daily Tech Show on BD Daily Tech News Podcast. New episodes drop with sharp, structured breakdowns of the tech stories that actually matter.
If this helped you think differently about GPUs, AI at work, or that ring you didn't know you needed, hit subscribe, share it with a friend, and tell us in the comments what you want us to unpack next.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow with more daily insights on technology and innovation.